Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Maker That Money podcast, where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. I am one of your hosts, Pooch of Repkord, and with me this morning, I have the amazing, the talented, the incredibly intelligent Mr. Andrew Mayhall of 3D Gloop, the king of the empire of Sticky, Mr. Andrew Mayhall. Andrew, how you doing today? I'm well, thank you for asking. Also with us on the pod, all the way from the lovely Czech Republic or Czechia, however you prefer it, in Prague. Are you in Prague right now, Shane?
Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
you were. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because you're a world traveler of sorts. Um,
Yeah, I get
Mr.
bored easily, and I just end up going all around the place.
Yeah, you got that wanderlust. Mr. Shane LaHaye of Prusa Research. Man, we could not be luckier to have such a good guest with us for this topic this week because we're going to talk about difficult customers in a little bit, just to let you know where we're headed. And I don't know anybody, like Shane was literally the first person to come to mind. I don't know that anyone that has probably fielded more customer support tickets than Shane for Prusa. So we're going to get into that. But Shane, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Obviously, we don't have a video feed. That's fine because most people listen back on this podcast. But anybody that's tuned in live on YouTube watching us 9 a.m. Pacific every Friday, by the way, will realize that you don't see Shane. That is intentional. Well, it's
hmm
not intentional. It's unfortunate, but based on where he is in his travel and stuff right now, he wasn't able to get a good video feed set up. So we're just doing audio today, and that's fine. But Shane, introduce us. Tell us what you're currently doing, because I know you don't do the customer support at the moment. You're on the content team, I believe. But give people the quick pitch on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. But first off, thank you very much for having me. It's greatly appreciated, and thank you for the great intro. I'll send you some money via PayPal for that
Yeah,
afterwards.
some Czech
But yeah,
crowns. I would be nice.
uh, so yeah, basically, I started with 3D printing back in late 2016. I was here in the Czech Republic already, and I bought a Prusa machine. I had some issues with it, and I found out that they were in the city. So I went down, I talked to them about my issues and everything else. I got them sorted, and I just looked at them like, I'm going to work for you guys. And they looked at me as I'm crazy. I'm like, no, really, because their level of support was just absolutely phenomenal. When you compare it to um, e- regular customer support here is a lot different than what people would be used to in the states.
Hmm.
So to find a Czech-based company that had phenomenal Czech customer service, I was like, wow. So I basically kept to my threat, and I was hired by them in early 2017, and for the most part, I did their customer support for,
Spent about
let's
6 years.
see, oof, not that long, but yeah, roughly
Well,
right around there.
2017.
And I went, I left, I worked for some other places, still doing support roles, and then I came back, and now I work for the content department, which is kind of like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And then, like, but for me, it's like I went on and I have my hands in a lot of different things and everything, and it's still in a way related to support because looking at, for example, the forum posts or social media posts and see
Mm-hmm.
what people are having issues with, and then trying to sit there and see what we can create to help the customers out so they're not as frustrated, or they don't have as many problems. So
Well, it sounds like you wear
that's it. That's
a couple different hats, or you have worn a couple different hats there.
So yeah, for the most part, yeah. But I mean, I still like it because I'm still engaging, people on social media or wherever, and it's great to have that because like you sit there all day long and you're helping people with issues and problems and everything else, and y- you kind of have to have that little something that reminds you why you got into it in the first
Right.
place. So when you're engaging people and they get their printer for the first time and they're full of excitement and everything else, you kind of feed off of that and it goes a long way.
Well, great. Well, awesome. Okay, so I talked about what the topic for today is, and that's specifically dealing with the grumpy customers, and I think we all
Oh
have
boy.
some some stories that we can share from that. But
I've got scars.
before we do,
Mhm.
before I have our moment of catharsis and storytelling and all that stuff, we have to share the wins for the week because we are a positive people here on Maker That Money. And to lead off, Andrew, I would love it if you would share a win for the week.
Okay, cool. Well, let's see. Win for the week. We're making lots of good progress on a couple of new product releases. So we have a new applicator that we've been working on for quite some time, and hopefully we'll be releasing it in the next couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. It's final stages.
That's a great win. Shane, you're on deck. You're next now. You're up. You're up. What is your win? What's something good that happened to you this week, Shane? Dig deep.
I'm wor- I'm working on a few new processes for work. I can't go into details yet, but
Okay.
it's going good with that, and it's something that I normally wouldn't do. So it's something brand new for me and everything. So it's good.
Nice.
It's been a
Good.
good week.
Good. Good. Getting some good
Awesome.
learning experience, making some progress, all good things.
Mhm.
For us, I'm going to say let's see, last week I said we launched our new turntable storage box, which I'm really excited about. We've been
How's that
iterating
going?
it on it quickly. It's going great. But specifically, my win this week is we came up with a much better like spring system. So really quickly, this box is different from our original one because it's more like a drawer and it's designed for really large spools. And so there's a turntable for the large spools to rotate on. But one of the challenges with having a drawer that pulls out is having like kind of a springy or a flexible interface so that when you close the
Hmm.
drawer and open the drawer, the filament doesn't kind of just like yank the spool and unwind. And we came up with a really cool system. My director of ops actually came up with a really good system, and we kind of collaborated on some stuff, and we came to a good solution. So it's funny because, and Shane, you can attest to the challenges of this. We launched the product as like a V1, and we're
Mhm.
already iterating and changing and like issuing a retrofit, and there's already a V1.1. And it was like, I just wish we had figured this out like a week ago before we
Mm.
send this half to backtrack. But the first couple dozen that are out, like it's not a big deal. We have a printable fix and a plan for if they want that particular upgrade, how to
Mhm.
handle that. And moving forward, we'll implement this new change. But I'm really excited about that. So it's always good when you kind of figure out a problem that's kind of I've never been fully happy with. Like it wasn't enough to prevent the launch, but it wasn't where I wanted it, and I think we got it. So that's good. But it's the double-edged sword of continuous improvement, right? You have the benefit of kind of having an upgrade path and changing and stuff, but then it throws production kind of all out of whack when you're like, okay, we're ready to go. Wait, no, hold on, we're gonna change it real
Mm.
quick. So
Yep.
yeah, so that's always fun. But I'm gonna tack it up as a
Well,
win.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So now is the time where we get into the meat and potatoes, as I like to say. And so today's topic on the pod is dealing with the grumpy customers. Now I think we've talked about we've definitely touched on customer support
Hmm.
before,
Yep.
and that in of itself is a big topic, and there's a lot of different strategies. And as a maker, I think there's a wide swath of introverted, extroverted personality types that may or may not have experience in customer service skills. You may be a really great engineer. There's like a number of different
Hmm.
talents that I think we all as makers have our strengths in, and then our people skills are variable, just like the rest. And so I can imagine that one of the points of resistance, and let me know in the chat if this resonates with you, for some makers out there are just like, oh, I really love the idea about getting a product and selling it and starting a business, but dealing with the public at large just feels really overwhelming to
Hmm.
me. Is that you? Raise your hand in the chat if that feels like you, if that's one of your fears. Um, because that's a valid one. It's a really difficult thing sometimes to deal with such a wide variety of opinions and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and you're gonna get it wrong, and people are gonna be unhappy, and that's really stressful and builds a lot of anxiety for people and whatnot. So I don't know if the both of you can start off in terms of talking about what your background has been, and if you felt like you were well suited for customer service to begin with, or if that's something that you've had to learn. Andrew, you want to
Sure.
start off, and then we'll go to
Yeah,
Shane.
yeah, I'll kick it off. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I am not the best when it comes to dealing with with customers or the customer support. Being technical minded and really focused on that engineering side, I can very easily go off on tangents and get into into the weeds a little bit when a
Mhm.
customer is coming to us like, oh, hey, I've got a problem with this, or can you help me solve that? And it was definitely a bit of a rocky start when we first got started,
Right.
like how to actually find our voice with our customers specifically.
Yeah.
But I would say that just jumping in and getting the hang of it, happened quite a bit easier. Like just surrounding yourself, like you have to deal with this problem as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, if you are going to be selling products to customers. So just
Sure.
confront the problem head on, and you'll figure out how to swim.
I mean, that is a tactic. Shane, what do you think? Were you cut out for customer service? Were you just born with the gift of it?
Oh yes, I'm half Irish, so I'm born with the gift of the gab, so they say. But I mean,
Well, gab is one thing,
you,
but dealing with people is a whole different thing.
it's more of a skill that you learn over time. You can sit there and read however many books and articles and guides on how to do things. You can learn the technical skill. The people side of it is
Hmm.
something that you learn. There's no way you can sit there and get so many different like psychology books on how to deal with people and everything else. But when you have someone who's, whether it be over email or chat or voice or however,
Hmm.
and they're just frustrated and they're looking for a target just to unleash all their, you know, negativity
Mm,
on, and that's you. And you have to try to figure out how to quickly try to de-escalate it, get them focused in on fixing the problem, fixing it for them, and then trying to do what you can to depending upon what the issue is, whether it be a short-term fix, a long-term fix. And unfortunately, I've never seen any type of company uh, guidelines for any place I work for. It's like you must do this, or oh, it's so easy. Everything is you play it by ear for the most part. You know, because
Yep.
if you try to sit there and do like textbook, like do A, B, and C and D, almost like you're reading off a script, that can actually uh, give you the wrong results and make a customer even worse,
mm.
because
Hmm.
you're not, they feel like you're not listening to them, that you're just focusing on going off of a script.
That's a really good point, and I hadn't considered that. So now you actually have. So Andrew, just so context, Andrew and
Hmm.
I are relatively small, obviously
Mhm,
compared to a company the size of Prusa. And
mhm,
Hmm.
so we probably don't have as much of a formalized script. It's a very much just like, hey, how can I help you kind of thing, and we
mhm,
deal with
yep,
it. But when you're at a larger company and you've got multiple people handling support, and there needs to be clear communication about who is handling which tickets and all of that stuff, I can
mhm,
completely understand the need for a much more in-depth process. And
right,
so a script may be a great starting point or a guideline for somebody that's new to the whole thing, but as you've mentioned,
mm,
you may really quickly realize that may be a detriment, and I hadn't
right.
considered that. That's interesting.
Yeah, neither
Yeah,
have I.
I always fight against using any type of scripts because I worked for a few other places. They're like, "Yeah, what if we do this?" I'm like, "What about no?" Because you're just gonna make things a lot worse than you realize. Because like I mean, we've all dealt on the other side of it, where say you had to call the cable companies, the internet companies are the best ones for it. Where it's just like they're just reading off a script of troubleshooting and everything else. And there's been plenty of times I'll say something crazy just to try to wait for them to like, excuse me, what'd you say? I said I
There's
like
no way that's a
turtles, and
bot. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's just like something. And they just keep on going, and it's like you're not even listening. and that's a very key. It's a very important thing. One advantage when you if you're doing any type of like support work over a call,
Yeah.
it's if you have someone's email or a chat, you're reading what they're writing, but you're interpreting it in your head. You know what I mean?
You're
Mm-hmm.
So
putting a
someone could
voice
be
to it. Yeah.
right, and you're putting the emotions behind that voice. You could have it all wrong, but if
Sure.
you're dealing with someone over a phone call, there's no mistakes about it. You can
Sure.
tell if
Yeah.
someone's screaming at you or not.
Yeah, that's such a challenge with just communication in general in this day
Hmm.
and age, right? The tone of things,
Yeah.
it can
Mm-hmm.
be read like you can read the exact same words, and honestly, a lot of times I've realized it's dependent on my mood. So if for some
Mm-hmm.
reason I feel like I'm already defensive or something like that, it just feels like the tone of everything is like people are coming at you, and the same exact words the next way when I'm feeling fine are just like completely inert or they're happy
Mhm.
even, and it's such a weird phenomenon, but it's a serious one, especially because our communication has shifted to be much less in person, much less audio based,
Mhm.
and much more
Mm-hmm.
text based now. So that you bring up a good challenge, Shane,
Mm-hmm.
in that commentary in general. And I imagine when you're dealing with something the size of a Prusa, where not only do you have such a volume coming at you, but you have a number of different languages and cultures and
Mhm.
traditions and stuff like that, and not everybody is using English as their primary language. Here's a question for you. I don't even know this, but when people are emailing support, are they oftentimes just sending stuff in their native language, expecting you guys to have somebody that speaks that language or to translate, or is everybody using English? What's the policy there?
It it's a mix. Prus is one of the first companies that I've worked for over here in the Czech Republic that has a wide range of different languages as far as doing chat support and email. Because
Interesting.
there's
Mm-hmm.
French, German, Spanish, Italian, Polish, Slovak, Czech, and English.
No Klingon.
You know,
No Klingon.
Disappointing. That's
You know what?
disappointing.
I'll guarantee you if I like threw a message in like the local support thing, like anyone speak Klingon, so
Blah.
believe me,
Yeah.
so exactly.
We need to
Someone will
talk
sit
to
there.
Joe about that. Okay, there needs to be some
Exactly.
Klingon, maybe some Esperanto. Um, Listen, but that's really interesting to me. So you've got,
Hmm.
given that you're in Central Europe, you're like almost like a cultural hub of sorts. I mean,
Yep.
dealing with people from all over the world. Obviously, it's a world-renowned brand and one of the most prolific printers and stuff out there. So you need to be able to meet people where they are. What
Right.
tools do you have? Are you just using like a Google Translate if you don't speak, or is it being handed
Well,
off to somebody that might have those native language skills?
for it really depends. Like when I first started, I was working the day shift over here, and so you get people coming into chat or phone calls in different languages, and I'd pick up one, and someone would speak German or whatever, and I'll quickly go to Google Translate, like, please wait a minute, I'll get someone for you.
Yeah.
And it was like I felt like a bump on the log, because like I was only taking half of the calls I was supposed to because of a language barrier.
Hmm.
So what I ended up doing was I ended up switching to the working hours just to deal with North Americans or other
Mm.
English speaking areas, just so it was, I was making sure I was pulling my own weight type of thing.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it's but even still, even when I was doing like the overnight shifts
Uh
over
huh.
here, I was still dealing with people from other countries besides North America. I was also dealing with the night owls of Germany or
Mm-hmm.
Right.
people in Asia
Right.
who it would be in the afternoon time. So you kind of have to sit there and y- y- you really have to try to do it where you don't take anything personal. That's the key thing. Because,
So
for example,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, no, no.
Well, I was gonna say because like when you're dealing with an international audience, let's say, someone's trying to be polite in their culture, but it comes across as being it could be very rude or short or just being jerks. And
Yeah.
it's not
Mm.
that. Like for example, Germans are very direct and to the point, and don't have time for idle chit chat or whatever.
Right. How
Um,
are you? How are you today? What's that? Yeah.
yeah,
No, I have a
no,
problem.
no,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. They're like, I don't have time for this. Here's my problem. Fix it. And it's just how they are. They're not being
Yeah.
jerks. Or certain countries in Asia, it's very similar, where it's just like direct and to the point, and you know,
I'm not
you're in
looking
that
for a
mindset.
friend here. I'm looking for a
Yeah,
fix. Yeah.
yeah.
I got, yeah.
They're just like so direct, and it's like, dude, I'm just trying to help. They're like, oh no, I appreciate it. It's like, oh, okay, you just y- y- doing customer support, especially dealing with people who are upset and just grumpy as anything,
Mm,
is you have to have this almost like a blank slate for your mindset, where you have to realize you're not talking to you know everyone's from one certain place and they all speak the same language as you and they all act just like you and everything else. You have to kind of sit there and start a support case with, again, clean slate,
sure.
do everything you can for them and everything else, and then when you take the next person, you reset,
That
Mhm.
and you just do
there
it
you
that.
go. You can't take the
Yeah.
baggage of the last call or the
No,
Yeah.
last ticket with you on
or
the
not even
next
the
one.
baggage, just your mindset of people.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
You
it's. Did you ever see
wow.
that movie? What was it? Roadhouse, from like the '90s with Patrick
E- e-
Swayze.
Ages ago. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so no, but see, this is my favorite part of that movie. Is the best thing ever
Okay, tell
about
us.
doing tech support. You know, the guy who bought the new bar has Patrick Swayze in, and he's meeting the staff and everything else, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And they're like, what if we have this problem? What if we have that problem? Blah 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 blah.
Right, 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 right.
This, that, and everything else. And he's just like, don't take anything personal.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a job.
Mhm.
Whatever they say is just words. That's it. Don't react to
Yeah.
it. Don't get mad. And that's the best way. I even when I took some of the guys from Tech Boys just starting, like, watch this clip.
Yeah.
Whatever language that you can understand it as perfect as possible, watch that clip and then come back to me. That's how I want you to take every single case.
You know, that for me is way, I don't know about you, Andrew, is way easier
Mhm.
said than done. Because
Mm,
my
Yes.
style has always been to try to build a rapport and to try to set some
Mhm.
context. Because the first challenge I will say that we are at the level we're at is
mhm.
Mhm.
establishing with the customer who they're even dealing with.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
like people are pretty familiar, like at the size of Prusa, but there is a large swath of customers that I have that have no concept whether or not I am a tiny, one man operation in my garage or if I'm in a skyscraper in New York
Mhm.
City.
Mhm.
As silly as that probably sounds, most of the people here, know where we are. I have two employees. We're still a
Mhm.
very small business. Um, and so I have a tendency to want to disarm when people are grumpy just to give them context. And that doesn't
Right.
mean like, hey, take pity on me, but it's just like, okay, here's what we're dealing with here right now. Like, we're sorry, we're still small, we're making mistakes, we're iterating, we're trying to make things better. We're not just trying to upset you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Um, and I understand that not everybody wants the time to go into the details about who I am and what I do. They just want to find a fix for their program. So you're absolutely right that you need to try to meet people where they need to be. But I
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
think that there is value to trying to build some kind of rapport, or at the
Oh,
very least, proving that you're not a chatbot to them, right?
yeah.
Like do
Oh, yeah,
something
yeah.
that just indicates that you are a human. Hey,
Well, you
you're
can
talking
always
to a
have
human
fun with
here.
people
Yeah, yeah.
as well, because like there was one person, they put their name as Thor, and
Thor.
sure, the guy was from Norway, I think, or
I mean,
somewhere
his
up there.
name could
But
have
that
been
his
Thor.
it was, because I
Oh,
looked
it
it
was
up and
actually
everything else.
Thor. Okay,
And
good.
from that moment on, I just addressed him in the chat as Odin's son. And I,
Uh,
went into the whole character of it and everything else of all hail Odin's son.
Nice.
what did he think
You
of
know,
that? Did he like it?
oh, I think he was a little bit annoyed first, but then when I really got, like, because I really got into it,
Yeah.
he kind of lightened up and
Okay, all
everything.
right. See,
So,
good disarming. I think that
yeah,
that's a good tip
Mhm.
yeah,
for grumpy
it is
customers.
very, very, there's ways to diffuse a situation like for the most part, like if people are sitting there again, this is on chat, and you can tell if someone is mad. Well, if they're typing very fast with a lot of
Well, a lot of caps and
typos, yes,
and
with
exclamation
caps and
points.
typos and everything else, they're pissed off.
Yeah.
And
Angry typing. Angry typing.
exactly. And so, I would just sit there and I'm like, all right, this is how we're gonna work. Okay. I'm gonna give you 3 to 5 minutes and you are going to get everything out.
Your
You are
mouth
going
shape.
to vent, you're
Eat a
gonna just
banana.
explode.
Yeah.
And then after that point, you're gonna stop venting. We're gonna work on this together and we're gonna fix your problem. And then after that, if you feel you need to vent more, go right
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And usually, even when I was just saying something like that, it breaks
Right.
the rage
Mhm.
or the anger and
Sure.
everything else because it's unexpected. And it's just like, oh, damn, this person really wants to, try it out because he's going to let me vent and get it out of my system and then work with me
Yeah, okay,
instead of,
I've got a product. It's not a product. I've got a feature idea for you guys. And I know you're not running support there anymore, but maybe you can pass this
Mhm.
up, up the chain. Maybe a little graphic of like a punching bag or like some little meter, like the sound meter you get at the arena where it's like based on the intensity where you can kind of gamify. You just put it up for them. And then you
Yeah.
let them like kind of get it out of their system, hit the punching
Mhm.
That's
bag or make the
hilarious.
meter go up. And then like, okay, let's talk,
Yeah.
because a lot of times like one of my first things when I get a grumpy customer is I just want to be like, who hurt you, man? Like, why are you coming at
Yeah.
me? Like,
Why
Exactly.
are you so mad? Yeah.
why are you so mad?
But there's
Yeah.
been a few people that it's the same thing. It's just like, who hurt you, man? Who did
Yeah.
this to
Who
you?
hurt
Why
you?
are you like this?
You got to be like a
You know.
part like therapist in a way. I
Mm.
know we're not
Mhm.
equipped for this. Come on.
Oh
Mm.
gosh.
But you're
Yeah, that's above
absolutely
my
right.
pay grade.
But you're absolutely right because in a way you kind of are a therapist because you have to sit there because you said before you never ever want to sympathize with someone. You want to empathize with them.
Oh, the
Put
old
yourself in their
sympathy, empathy.
situation.
Right.
You
Yeah,
Mhm.
know,
I want to call out because Vast
yeah, yeah.
CNC in the chat had that exact comment. He said he did customer support for a while. Found the key is to step outside yourself and align yourself with the goals of your clients. Think about how
Mhm.
they would solve the
Mhm.
problem with the tools and
Yep.
knowledge that they've got or you've got. So
Mhm.
that's absolutely correct. Empathy is important, and that is not an easy thing to do, especially when
Mm.
the closer you are to the product, the more personal you might have a
Mhm.
tendency to take it. And it's really hard to just not take it personally as a small business a lot of time. Now, at
Mhm.
the scope you're at, you weren't the one that made the design decision that caused something to break, that whatever. And so I
Mm.
think you're
Yeah.
probably able to be a little more disconnected. Maybe that's a
Mm.
benefit of a larger thing. But I know you guys have intimate. I'm not suggesting that you're not
Mm.
invested in the product. I'm
Mm.
just saying that I think that it might be a little easier if you're not quite as tied to the development.
Well, I mean, it depends, because like, say if something's released, and next thing you know, the following night I get an extra 50 to 100 chats,
Mm-hmm.
which would be insane for me. So then, like 7 o'clock in the, 7 o'clock in the morning, my shift finishes. If it's like, I got my butt chewed out all night, I'll stick around for 2 hours, stroll over to the developers and be like, yeah, what did you guys do? What do you
I,
mean? I got I
I
got
got
my ass
chewed.
chewed out for 9 hours. I
Yeah.
Oh
waited
man.
2
Okay.
hours for you guys to come in. I'm not,
Do
and
they
so
not
it's
give you
like,
a heads
Sure.
up when they do a release like that? I mean, you must have
it
some sense it might be coming.
yeah, I mean, like the communication has improved a lot.
Mm.
My favorite was like, they would do these big, huge announcements, and they always did it the same on Friday at 5 o'clock in the US. They would release it
Right when the
on the East
weekend's
Coast,
hitting. Yeah.
and I'm there all by myself. And next thing you know, it's like, poof, chat explodes and everything else, and I'm just like, I'm going to murder someone, I swear. And the funny, and like I would sit there and send these like
That's
long messages. I'm like,
hilarious.
I swear to God, the next time you guys do that, I'm going to give out your personal emails, your phone numbers, and everything else. And I don't, and I just would lose my mind. I'm like, you guys have no idea what to do. And the funny thing is, I work for that department now, and so I
Now
try to
you're the
make sure.
one.
Yeah,
Don't do
so I'm
that.
always like,
Yeah.
Yeah, does support know about this? Yeah, okay. You know what? I'll just because every now and then, if something's going on, I'll just shoot them a message like, "Hey guys, just so you know, this is going on. Here's the information. Blah 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 blah."
Okay, so here's where I'd like to go next with this. One, if you guys have a story, so I'm inviting anybody in the chat as well as Andrew and Shane. If you've got a
Mm-hmm.
story, and again, we don't need to get into the specifics of names can be changed to protect the innocence and stuff like that. But we all kind of have our horror stories, and maybe it ended positively, maybe it didn't, or whatever. But like a little catharsis, a little just like you know what this guy did. I think you probably have some memory of it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but be thinking about it right now because I'm about to hit you with it. Um, I want to share that, and then I want to go into kind of tool. It doesn't. You don't necessarily have to. Maybe the story ends well, and you had some good tools, and you turned it into a positive. But we'll focus on just like I was saying. Let's hit the punching bag a little bit, and then let's talk about how to fix it, how to address it, some tools, some strategies for anybody that might be starting up that hasn't had the experience, that's going blind into customer support and dealing with potential grumpy people. So, do either of you want to go first in terms of like a horror story or something that might be interesting to share here?
Sure. I mean, I'll kick us off.
Kick it off, Andrew.
So I wanted to. First, I wanted to comment on something that that you and Shane kind of brought up. About being the business owner or the designer who's making the choices that inevitably the customer is going to be interacting with,
Okay.
and then receiving feedback on that.
Okay.
Like, oh, hey, there's issues here, or whatever. So having to like separate yourself, because as the business owner, or the entrepreneur, you're trying so hard to get your product off the ground or things moving,
Mm,
and maybe you're making decisions based off of your costs or what's available to you,
right.
and you might know, like, oh, hey, I've made this decision and it's kind of a workaround, and then now it's like, oh, I've got customer support issues. Maybe things are breaking and it was totally unexpected, but I was trying to solve like cost reduction, or ease of manufacturing. I find that some of the more hard, most difficult pieces to actually deal with, because it was a choice that I made that inevitably led to this poor experience with the customer, and so trying to like
Mm,
separate that
mm-hmm.
is has been difficult.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
in terms of horror stories, right? We had so first, I've mentioned this numerous times, like we've always had issues with storing our product for long term. And at first we were sourcing these caps,
The
and
caps.
from a manufacturer, and they were just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
then changed some seals, we did all of this work, and we had this one particular customer who was a repeat customer. He'd come by, he'd purchase it, and I don't know what happened, but something happened where it eventually set him off. Like, he got a bottle and he didn't get to use it, and he got really, really upset. And we got this really long email, like he's been the supporting us, and then he's had bottles in the past that have gone bad, but he never bothered to reach out. He just went and got another bottle, and so it was like it was building, right?
And you didn't
And
know the whole
we
time.
didn't know
Yeah, yeah, sure,
exactly.
sure.
Yeah,
And but
and
finally, the
and so
straw that broke the camel's back hit, and he just like, I'm laying into it
mhm.
because you know.
Yeah, and so this happened right at the transition of our old metal caps into our new purple caps. And we had just rolled out the new purple caps, and we were learning how to assemble these. Like, this was something that we had someone manufacture for us, custom to our specifications. We then got them in, and then we had to assemble them by hand. We had to put seals in, we had to put these, this lock nut on, another seal, another lock nut. We had to shove the brush into the cap. Like, there was a process. It was all very new to us. And we unfortunately weren't doing really good at quality control. And we had touted, oh, this is the new cap. It's going to solve it. It's going to allow for longer term storage.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
this is where this guy's like, I've had enough. Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah. Yeah.
ridiculous. You
Yeah.
guys, not only did I wait like almost a year to get this thing,
Yeah.
now it just doesn't work.
It doesn't even
And
work. Hmm.
yeah.
Wow.
So that to me, like, as again, as the guy who designed the cap, like, I had poured hundreds of hours of research into this design. I had
Yeah.
made the decisions of, okay, hey, this is how it's going to work. This is how, we're going to solve this problem. And then to have this customer, who had been a supporting customer, come back to us and say, this is crap. This doesn't work. Screw you guys. I'm going to go elsewhere. I'm going to tell everyone else, like, never deal with these guys again because they don't know what they're doing. It was hard. I
I
mean, it
don't
was
doubt
hard
it.
to not take it personally.
Yeah. All right, Shane, you're up. Pick the juiciest because I'm sure you've got a bajillion of them.
Yeah, okay. This was probably back in 2017, first year working with Prusa, right?
Okay.
So, people would contact us and like they would, especially with the clone, people would buy the clones, right? And they just see,
Oh, the clones.
Prusa's name on the clones and they would try track us down and everything else. And I would help them out to the best that I could as far as finding out, the other company's support structure and send them that way and explain the reasons why I really couldn't help them out. So, um, a particular no Walmart started selling clothes, and I just sat there. I'm like,
Send in the clones
you could just feel the dark, cold hand just reaching my shoulder and just
of death.
gripping into because I knew it was what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So and it, when people did the whole, like they would ask me to help them with the clone machines and everything else. 99% of them were fine,
yeah. Hmm.
except for a few. And one
Except for the
person
ones that
was like,
weren't.
this is before like the whole like Karen thing or whatever, right? They were like, well, I want your manager. I'm like, it's
I,
two
I am
o'clock in the morning over here.
I am
I
the
am the
manager.
manager, right? Well, I want your supervisor. Again, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I am not calling them. I want the owner.
I mean,
I'm
how would
like,
they ever know? You're just like, hold on a second, let me transfer you.
yeah,
Hello, this
but
is the manager, except for that you're typing.
no, but it gets better, right?
Yeah.
So the person's like, like, I want your name. I gave my name. They're like, I'm gonna call the police. I'm like, oh,
They
really?
call the police?
I'm like, you're gonna call the police on me? I'm like, okay. I go, but just you got to remember, one thing. I'm in the Czech Republic,
Yeah.
so you're
The
gonna have to
Czech
call the
police.
Czech police and don't speak English.
uh,
So I mean, I'm sorry, but there's nothing more I can do for
I'm
you,
gonna call the
and
police.
that's it, right? But it the messed up thing was it wasn't the only time that happened. It
Oh
happened two
no.
times,
Different
right?
customers
And
have threatened to call the
different
police on you?
customers because I looked them up and they were in completely different states and everything else, right? Because like when you come
Wait,
into chat support,
these are American customers? Can you at least
yes,
give it? Okay,
yes,
all right.
yes,
And they're
and
threatening
so
to call the police.
yes,
Oh
because I
man.
wouldn't help them with their printers,
Does
but
that
it's
work?
no,
Has anybody ever called the police to report a poor uh, customer support issue?
I'm
That's
gonna call the
well, I
police.
mean, you have
I
people
would
calling the
imagine that
cops because McDonald's mess up their hamburger,
I would
so
love to talk to like a customer not there's no customer support at the police office, but the dispatcher receiving because
yeah.
I guarantee you they're getting the most ridiculous stuff.
Mm.
And they'd probably be just like, oh yeah, we get calls about that all the time. And I hope they admonish the person, like stop wasting valuable resources on something like this. Talk to the Better
I think
Business Bureau. There's other
if
places to
you
call.
yeah, I think if they do if you call the police often enough, they can actually file, arrest you for being a nuisance or whatever.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is the second time, I'm like, after I double checked to make sure it wasn't the same person, I'm like, I go, all right, here's the thing. I'm in the Czech Republic, blah, 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 Czech police, no English and everything else. I go, how about this? I'll call and I'll do a three-way call, but I have to be able to record the phone call. And they disconnected. I'm like, oh, I was so mad because I really
I
wanted because I
mean,
was all in for it.
these are clearly
This
people
time,
that are not well, man. This is not like
no. And like
this
I
is
would
not
sit
normal
there,
behavior.
yeah, and I would empathize and try to, still help them out because they're just getting the 3D printing and I want them to enjoy it and everything else. But then it's just like I'm gonna call the police. I'm like, how would that even work? Like I could just imagine that. Even if they were calling like the regular police, like they won't fix my 3D printer. Ma'am, this is 911.
We're
This
gonna
is
work
not
on
an
shift. We're gonna
emergency.
work in shifts until we solve this one. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got our best
Oh
detectives on
man.
this.
So that's probably about like the
Oh, jeez.
craziest one, because like I was when I first heard it, it was like someone took a sledgehammer to the side of my head, because I couldn't believe someone was like they really wanted to call the police, and I'm like, even still, if that was in the U.S., how would that work? Would they gonna come over here, sir? You must help them out, or we're going to arrest you for what?
Right, right. Poor customer support, of course.
You're
Yes,
breaking the
That's
law,
you.
Shane. You're
I
not.
I
Stop
guess
breaking.
so.
That's the law here, Shane. I feel like
Breaking
you
the
don't.
law.
Yeah, yeah, breaking the law. All
I'm
right,
just a
so time to
rebel.
share some horror stories from the chat really quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, let's see. Fun subject. Map Laboratory says at his old job he had a client from a multi-billion-dollar medical device manufacturer. Oh, that's big time. Did 100,000 a year with them. Who sent his university homework portal login to one of his coworkers, trying to get them to do his homework for them. So so this brings
Okay.
up an interesting one more from him. Same client a year or so later tried to extort his boss into paying a law firm $4K to file a green card application for his brother to immigrate to the U.S. and work for us. So this brings up an interesting topic, guys. There's gonna be people that are just not helpable, that are clearly
Hmm.
like are there policies at Prusa, Shane, for defining if somebody's particularly abusive, if they're cussing at you, if they're threatening you, if they're doing these things, do not engage. Like, because there's nothing but madness at the end of that road, right?
Hmm. Well, for the most part, like um, when I first started there, I was the only one doing the overnights, and then as the company was growing, more and more people were contacting me during the overnight shift, so they brought more people on. And I would let everyone know, I'm like, if you have a difficult person, if they turn it personal and start calling you names or anything else, let me know right away, because
Yeah.
I will stop everything and take that, because I like I said, I will empathize. I will put myself in your shoes. But the minute you make it personal,
Right.
Hmm.
that's crossing a line. And for both of you, like you were saying before, there's a difference between like a medium-sized company and a startup, where you want to
Mm.
keep that that goodwill with your customers and build on it. It's just like you're doing everything you can, and someone turns it personal. They're beyond damaged at that point. And it's just like you really
Hmm.
have to try to determine whether the person's valuable to if it can be saved, if it will be a good experience in the end, or if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to sit there and put in so much time and energy for, because some people, you know,
Right.
you can shoot for 100% customer satisfaction, but you will never get that.
No,
You
can't
can
please
get
everybody.
99.92 whatever percent, and you just have to learn at times. Is just sometimes you just have to, there's been some customers for us where it's been so difficult and everything else. It's like, you know what, just send the machine back.
Mm.
We'll give you a refund and everything else, and that's the time,
Oh, I
it's
hate
that,
that. Yeah, I mean, I
Hmm.
get it, but I hate it.
yeah, but
Andrew, talk. Sorry, really quick, Andrew. I
no,
want
go
you
ahead.
to talk about boundaries for you, or red lines,
Hmm.
or whatever. Because obviously, as you grow, you need to set some policy. You need to protect your people. You need to protect yourself. Because
Hmm.
mentally, like I said, we're not equipped to just be people's punching bags. And I understand that there is a difference, and we're going to talk about this in a second. In terms of, like, you can be upset. Like, I'm
Hmm.
okay with you being upset, and I can try to empathize with that. I can try to disconnect. But the minute that you are
Hmm.
threatening, the minute you are verbally abusive or whatever, and do you give a warning? Do you, like, it's rare that I
Hmm.
just be like, I'm not even going to talk to you. It's just like, look,
Hmm.
I'm happy to help you. What are your
Yeah.
boundaries?
So we actually talked about this in a previous podcast, when to fire the customer,
Yep, we
right?
did.
And again, kind of some highlights from there. We have a small process. I mean, when a customer support request comes in, we're really small. You're gonna deal with me. Like
Yeah.
all of those emails basically come directly to me.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time I'm the one who's actually dealing with it, and along with everyone others else's issue.
Yeah.
If it's going to be an issue where, like, there's something, it's quite involved, like, this customer's experiencing an issue, like, how do they adhere their prints together, whatever it might be. I'll try and work with them to an extent, give them generic information saying, listen, this is how you do it. But there have been times where customers have come in very upset, like someone had lost their order beyond my control, and they're
Sure.
mad at me and they're taking it out on us. And it's just
Yeah.
like, listen, this is the process. This is what you have to do. And I explain it to them. And if that doesn't solve the problem and they keep coming back, it's like, well, then the only thing I can do for you is I can offer you a refund. And I have a little book or a little thing that I just go through and I make notes. There have
Yeah.
been times where customers have repeatedly tried to abuse a system where they say, oh, hey, this thing's gone wrong,
Yeah.
and we keep track. Like, there is a log of how many times we replace specific customers products, that sort of stuff. And the moment that we sense that someone's starting to abuse it, we kind of call them out. We say, listen, you've ordered X number of times, or you've come
Yeah.
here X number of times repeating the same issue.
Yeah.
Like, we can't keep helping you.
Yeah.
And at which point we've had, I think it's only a couple, but we've had to block people from buying our products because they take and abuse the system.
So
Um,
the interesting point there, and I think what is, I was saying when Shane was commenting earlier,
mhm,
I hate the whole like, fine, just send it back, right? Because
mhm,
a lot of times we have this tendency to just like not want to relent to the abuse or not, but from a pragmatic
mhm,
standpoint, you're wasting way too much of your precious time dealing with
mhm.
this. So it's like, from a monetary standpoint, if you burn through hours of customer support and stuff like that, you may as well have just like given them a
Yep.
refund or taken it back. It depends on what the product is. Obviously, we're talking about returning a whole printer, and that
Mhm.
there's implications too, Shane. Obviously, if somebody buys a kit and has put it half together and wants to return it, and you get, it doesn't fit in the box anymore, they're not going to take it apart entirely. I've had horror stories where people like half assembled a rep box, threw it in a garbage bag, shipped it back, and the whole thing came in not only in pieces but destroyed because it wasn't
Yeah.
protected. Um,
But
Simply because I was like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. You are a
Mhm.
crazy person.
mm,
Yeah.
It,
see, but like the customers don't understand, at least from like working with Prusa, if they do something like that, the repair the cost to repair that printer is taken out of the refund. So they're screwing themselves over even for
Mm.
more. And I will make sure to tell them that, in a very nice
and
way.
when they issue a chargeback, how does that happen? Like, you don't have to
It,
deal
Mhm.
with the economics of
no,
that. I'm guessing.
that part, I honestly, I
Yeah.
make sure everything's well documented for that stuff. So I mean,
Right.
it's that part. I don't have that much experience, but
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
everything's documented, I guess that could be of assistance fighting a chargeback.
Yeah, and for those who don't know
Mhm.
what I'm talking about, I think most of you know what a chargeback is, but there is mechanism, especially in the states. I don't know how it is internationally with other card issuers and stuff like
It's the
that,
same.
but yeah, you can always dispute a charge, and people will do it all the time. Whether or not it's
Mhm.
valid is a completely different thing. Like, there's a
Mhm.
big difference between paying for something having never got it or was clearly fraud versus like, well, I'm unhappy with this product, and unfortunately the cost of credit card processing and stuff has gone up over the years because people are abusive of that system, and try
Yep.
to issue chargebacks and stuff for stuff. And on top of that, there's seller protection things. So if they use PayPal, and like Shane is saying, you've got to document everything. This is why you have to have a robust return policy. Like, a lot of it comes down to documentation, and giving your support team the tools they need. So, and understanding when it's appropriate to accept a return and when it's better to push
Mhm.
back and whatever.
Mhm,
Obviously, I always advocate for trying to find a solution,
Mhm.
but sometimes you need to cut bait. So we've talked
mhm,
about
Yep.
kind of horror stories and all that, and we could probably share a dozen more. But I want to focus more on the tools now, so that anybody that's
mhm,
listening to this wants to start thinking about, okay, how do we turn it around? You get the grumpy customer that's typing at you in all caps. They're pissed off because, and you don't know, they may be having a bad day. It may be the third time they've tried your product and it doesn't work.
Mhm.
For me, I'll say, Unfortunately, there's just a handful of people that I think are experiencing buyer's remorse for various reasons, whether it's because
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't they had some vision in their head that the product was something that it never was, or
Mm-hmm.
when they bought it, their financial circumstances have changed, and or they got yelled at by their significant other for spending money where they probably shouldn't have, and so now they feel like that value proposition has changed, and that has all kinds of other
Mm-hmm.
things around, like making sure that your product photography is clear, your descriptions are clear on what it is and what it isn't, and all that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, there is always a swath of people that are going to take out kind of a buyer's remorse thing on you, whether or not it's rational or
Mm-hmm.
reasonable.
Sure.
Um, so, the first step I would argue is understanding that empathy piece that Shane's talking about. Where are they coming
Mm-hmm.
from? Like, what is their issue? Is their issue that they really didn't have $300 to spend on this in the first place, and they're just looking for a way out, or
Mm-hmm.
is it they just don't understand how to assemble it properly because they're just skipping critical steps? So you have to get to the and regardless of the tone that they're coming at you, you have to be sleuthing amidst
Mm-hmm.
guns blazing at you a lot of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
what tips do you guys have? Again, we talked about diffusion at the top, so let's not focus on that piece, but what other things do you have to getting to the crux of what the issue is first?
Andrew.
Anybody.
You know, yeah, yeah. I mean, diffusion. I know we mentioned that. That's usually what I go with. In I think for us though, our product, the value of it, it's relatively small. Granted, we have an issue where customers get their product and they think they know how to use it, and so we always try and come at it from an education standpoint if they're coming at it with an issue.
The value is high. The
Even if
cost is low. The value is
yeah.
high.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
In terms of most of the customer service issues we deal with is either something happened with in shipping, or something happened where it's not working as intended. And what I find the easiest is always just to start with that education piece. Explain a little bit what's going on, or tell the customer this is how the product works. And that usually seems to clear up a lot of things. Sometimes, just listening to their issues
Hmm.
helps a lot.
Hmm.
And making them feel heard. So like sometimes we get feedback and it's like, hey, we really appreciate that feedback. While I can't do something right this minute, we will take it, make some notes and take it in consideration in the future.
Yeah.
Um, that's really kind of what our kind of customer support really falls into, though.
Gotcha.
So,
Shane, what tips do you have for sussing out what the real root cause
Mm.
is?
It, it's kind of, you definitely have to play a little bit of detective work.
Mm.
If it's a brand new customer, you have to kind of go with the benefit of the doubt and,
Mhm. Mhm.
go with them. But if it's someone who has a long history, even just being a regular customer, then you try to figure it out, and you try to do in a way where you're trying to be helpful towards them. If
Mhm.
you guys remember, like, say, 15 years ago, there was like Comcast. Someone tried to cancel their services through Comcast, and the guy was going through a sales pitch trying to keep them and everything else. The guy's like, "No, no, no, I'm all set. I'm
Yeah.
all set. I just want to cancel." And the agent got so mad and was like, "Look, you're going to sit there and listen to what I have to say and everything else." It's an extreme case of
Yeah.
that, but it's something you never want to do
Yeah.
because, for me, it was a little bit different because with Prusa, there was lead times and everything else. So if someone had that buyer's remorse, or
Right.
if they had like a family situation or whatever, I never, tried to like, oh, well, you sure, because what if you gave it a little bit more time? No, I would never do that because you don't know the
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm.
And I'm not empathizing with the customer. I'm just trying to save a sale, and that can do a lot more harm at times. But I mean,
mhm.
it's a lot of it is trying to work with people, because for me, when I worked with a lot of people from the US, I built uh, a rapport with them and everything else. So, customers would, call me up for an issue and everything else, and then I would fix it. And then like 2, 3 weeks later, like, hey, I hate to bother you, but I'm having this other problem, and I wouldn't mind helping them out because you know it's part of the services that they offered, and I would have appreciated if someone would do the same for me.
Mhm.
There's
Right.
there's people you can tell who are willing try they're really trying to learn, they just can't
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
can tell the other people, it's like, yeah, I'm too lazy, just
Mhm.
Yeah.
just tell me what to
Solve
do.
it for me. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of difficult,
You got to do the
is
work. Yeah.
yeah, you're trying to fish it out to see, who's who's being honest with their issues, and then also, it's just like
I think.
there's no right or wrong way. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
ask them this and this, and if they say this, then it's that. There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
do that.
And you get better with it at time. I think you're
Oh
right. I
yeah.
think starting with giving people the benefit of the doubt, like you said, you can't take that energy of the last call with you for the
Mhm.
next one because
Mhm.
you're just dealing with completely different people. They have no context. They have no idea you've taken 50 calls over the course of the day. I mean, I
Mhm.
would hope. I think that some of the people that we gravitate towards socially, you can tell really quickly, like the people that are willing to like start yelling at a complete stranger versus like
Mhm.
if you watch this is something that just always surprises me, but like the people that we surround ourselves in our lives, like the ones that the way that they interact with other people, especially when they're not really being watched or they think they're not really being
Mhm.
watched, where they come from a point of humility, like the way they treat the barista, how's your day
Mhm.
going, like just things like little
Mhm.
social
Yep.
niceties like make so much of a difference in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of like framing that person's persona. And I love getting customers that will lead off, like a lot of times it's completely our fault. They'll come in
Mhm.
and be like, you know what, I probably just missed something. They're being humble to begin with. I'm
Mhm.
having an issue, and I will bend over backwards for these people. I will, like, even
Mhm.
if
Yep.
it's not our fault, if they're coming at it from like I'm not entirely sure, asking questions, not throwing accusations, not making assumptions and stuff like that. That tone is everything to me as somebody that's taking customer support. And so I've
Mhm.
talked about this before. Like, you'll be amazed at how much further you'll get, whether you're justified in your claim or not, by just like saying like, "Hey, Bill, how's your day going?" or whatever it is, to set the
Mhm.
tone that you understand there is a human on the other end that you're dealing with.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that is so missing for so many people, and it baffles me, honestly, like
Yep.
that
Mhm.
it takes nothing to do that. And I understand we have a lot of weight, and we don't always have the luxury of being that way. But we don't get to set that tone, right? So
Yeah.
we're talking about the customers that come at you guns blazing and trying to turn them around and all that stuff. But you
Mhm.
Mhm.
have to always, regardless of how irrational they're being, it's like I give them basically, three strikes, you're out. It's like,
Yep.
I'm so sorry you're having this problem. We're here to help. See how they respond to that. They're still yelling. If they're cussing at me, I'm like, listen, I can appreciate that this is hard, but uh I'm just trying to do the best that I can here. Like, can we, like, let's
Mhm.
focus on the problem at hand. Like, you don't need to be insulting or whatever. Like, I
Mhm.
think it's fair to call people on stuff without being, you don't have to come back at them, but I do think
Mhm.
you need to set a boundary. And if they can't respect that, I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't feel like we can help you right now. I'm
Mhm.
gonna disconnect because this feels abusive. Like, those things are reasonable.
Mhm.
Um, but let's talk about not getting that far. Let's just say like, okay, I'm sorry, we're trying to diffuse. We've
Mhm.
understood what the problem is. Now, how do we win them over? How do we fix the problem and win them? And a lot of times, I would go 80-20 rule on this. I would say vast majority of the people, even when they're upset and stuff like that, I'm very capable of, like, just because I responded, I told them, I
Mhm.
heard them, and I proposed a
Mhm.
solution. They're like, oh, this isn't a big deal after all. A lot of times I
Mhm.
think they're so upset because they feel like they're not even going to get a response, that they're going to have to
Right.
fight. A lot of people just
Yep.
think that the world is out to fight them. Am I wrong in that? Do you guys encounter those people where they're just
Oh
like,
yes.
I've always got to be ready because just
Mm-hmm.
everything is a fight.
Yep.
Yep.
I think a lot of it has to do with, like, their experiences with other companies, and they have to fight.
100%.
You
Yep.
know, if you try to bring something back to a retail store now, it's like, okay, well, yeah, there's a restocking fee, a repacking fee, a service fee, a this, you're
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I just bought this yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep.
The box
Yeah.
is still sealed.
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think they're so used to that and everything else. And then if you can just, like Andrew was saying, it's like, when the customer feels that someone's actually listening to them, it kind of,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, wow, they're actually listening and everything. And then it's like, for the most part, with my experiences, even the ones who are just, coming guns blazing and everything else, you get them sorted, you know, their issues fixed,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
eh,
Mm-hmm.
they leave happy. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's been plenty of times. There's some people where it's like, look, they'll call up screaming, yelling, like uh, we'll call up with them in the chat, and they're like, I ordered this and this didn't come in. And it's very important and blah blah. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll tell you what. This is what I'm going to do. My shift is over at this time. Shipping comes in at this time. I will go over there. I will pack the order myself, and I'll do it. And next thing you know, I'll do that. The next night they come back on like, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean? What did I do? I got a shipping
I
a
did my
notification,
job.
and it's going to be here in 2 days. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, well, I just did what I would have liked
Mm-hmm.
someone to do for me. I think a lot of times you can. It's a lot of times you deal with difficult people, but once you get them sorted and settled, they might not be 100% happy, but they're not as mad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do, like, because, like, my favorite is when they come in. So I'm gonna go over social media and I'm gonna tell them it's you and everything else.
Oh God. Do you know who
I
I
had one.
am?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell
Yep.
my
That one.
Do you know who
30
I am?
Facebook
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
followers. You go
I
right
have
ahead, buddy.
never, I've never used that line ever, but I've had people tell me that, and I'm like, and one person, I finally had it with them. I'm like, I go, look, if I have to ask, if you sit there and say, do you know who I am? And I say no, you're not that important.
I'm gonna share on my user group how
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
terrible this was, and nobody's gonna buy your stuff anymore. And we're gonna
Hmm.
show
Mm-hmm.
you. I love
Yep.
that. I love that threat.
So I generally like we've never really had a whole lot of threats. But I don't take threats. Like if we have a threat at all, like
Do not
whatever it is, like
negotiate with
I'm gonna leave
terrorists,
a
Andrew.
terrible review on
Yeah.
the business Better Business Bureau, or I'll do
Hmm.
this. It's like, okay, that's fine. This conversation's over. Like
Yep.
that's it. It's done. I'm not gonna deal with threats.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to, because that's just, it's someone trying to flex muscle that they really,
hmm yeah.
don't have.
I
One thing
don't
that's really
I don't
frustrating
take
is
go I was gonna say I don't know if I take the whole like social media. I think it's like a go-to
Mhm,
because I think there are a lot of companies that are like, oh, we can't be,
mhm.
our public persona can't be
Yep.
tarnished. Um, if they're constantly doing it, yeah, I don't know if I consider that a threat per se. Like I'll kind of gloss past
Mhm.
it a lot of times, but go ahead.
Mm.
So like it comes down to, like, we've had customers have reached out, again, very small amount. They say, oh, your product is terrible, it doesn't work, like I've had all these issues, if you don't refund me, like I'm gonna go and blast it, and it's like, we value
Put you on
feedback, even if it's
blast.
negative.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we couldn't help you, yeah, whatever, but again, like, we don't I don't deal with threats. So I said, you're more than welcome to do that. Like, it's just, I've even had customers say, like, oh, we'll put this email on, make it public, and it's like, I've said nothing wrong. I've been trying to help you. You've been difficult. At this point, I'm ending the conversation. This is over.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
threats
Boundaries are
of
important.
chargebacks, we've only had a couple, but the moment someone says, I'm going to charge back, it's like, nope, that's it, we're done.
I'm with
If
you
you
on
feel
that.
like you
I take that very
if you feel like
personally.
you're going to charge back, then
Yep.
that's fine,
Yep.
but that's it.
Yeah.
So Like there's maybe it's a little too harsh of boundaries, but again, it's one of those things where I think establishing them is the most important piece, and sticking with it, because otherwise, eventually, people get used to being able to take advantage of this, and it just
Yeah.
Mhm.
encourages this behavior in further interactions that this specific customer is going to have with other companies.
Yeah.
And obviously we can't control what other companies do, but we can control our own actions. And I think that goes to kind of paying it forward, if you will. If the customer sees that there's no way of actually getting any ground by engaging in this sort of behavior, they're less likely to try, hopefully, in the future. And if more
Mhm.
companies take this approach, I feel like eventually it's going to slow down a bit. But
Yep.
maybe that's an idealistic point of view.
Yeah, well, and it unfortunately it just doesn't work across the board, because
Hmm.
large companies tend to be more financially pragmatic, in the sense that it's just not worth our time. Just take the return, which is why
Yep.
Costco and Nordstrom and Amazon are just
Hmm.
like, who cares, like whatever. Especially
Yeah.
Amazon, where it's just like,
Yep.
we'll take the return, and we'll just bill it to the person that was selling it in the first place. What do we care?
Hmm.
Which was part of
Meanwhile,
the
you get a
reason.
box with a brick returned to you.
Oh yeah,
It's like,
and the
yep.
amount of time it takes to like, you're just like, whatever, move on. A lot of companies just like
Mhm.
chalk it up to cost of doing business, because from an economic standpoint, it just
Hmm.
makes more sense that way. But it encourages bad behavior. So
Yep.
it's
Hmm.
the ones that pay the price of that are the small businesses.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know.
Big
I
time.
would I would hope that there's a sea change, or at least that there are enough good people that don't abuse that. But unfortunately, you're going to always come across, there's never, just like Shane was saying earlier, you're never going to get perfect anything. You have to be prepared to deal with these types of people whenever you're
Mhm.
exposing yourself to public
Hmm.
customer, business to customer type stuff. um
Hmm.
any
I have a
last
question for
tips?
both
We
of
got to
you.
wrap up. Yeah, go ahead with the question, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, because I mean, because like you guys have mentioned before that it's smaller company and everything else. When you're helping someone, when you're helping a customer, do you let them know up front, that you are the owner of the company, or do you just play it off? You don't even tell them until, like, if they get more and more aggravated, then do you sit there and it's like, well, just so you know, you're talking to the owner.
Hmm.
I'm the owner of the company. Do
Hmm.
you let them know first who you are, or does that not even come into a factor?
For
For
me, it depends. It just, I
Yeah.
Hmm.
don't generally lead with that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But at times I'd be like, Listen, I would, I'm the owner or whatever, and I'm happy to do that." It just depends on the context. I don't know. What about you,
Right.
Andrew?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, usually I don't lead with it. 99% of the conversations we have, and it doesn't even come up.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few times where it would come up in such a way, like, again, if the customer's having a specific problem, and then they're like, "Well, this isn't helpful," and it's like, "Well, listen." I'm the guy who's the chemist behind the whole thing, or I'm the guy who's, basically doing this. And
Hmm.
then the conversation changes.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, but I kind of reserve that card for when it's really needed.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And sometimes I've had customer supports like, I didn't realize that you were the owner, like, and then they would
Oh,
respond, and then it's like, okay, and then I get a bunch of emails like, oh, hey, look at this fun thing that I did, and it's like, okay, I've got to start trying to figure out how to get out of this.
yeah.
you know
Because now you're buddies. I'm buddies with the owner.
No, that
yeah.
happens. I've had a
Hmm.
number
Yeah.
of people like, wait a minute, is this Pooch? Like, what are you doing answering
Yeah.
the customers? I'm because it's me, man. Like, it's me and two other
Yeah.
guys, and sometimes my other guy does support. But
I used to have
yeah,
customers who would hang out all night long on chat and everything else, and I'm like,
this is not a
guys,
hangout.
I'm
Hmm.
working. I
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I understand, being up late at night, you have no one around, but this is
yeah,
my job.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
can't. So
That's
I
funny.
was just curious to see how you guys, handle that
No,
stuff.
it's a
So.
good question. Sometimes it comes up, but generally most people don't care because they just want to get to the bottom of their
Mm.
thing. And if they say like, "Hey, let me talk to your boss," I'm like, "You're talking to the top of the ladder here," you
Yep.
know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
I want
that's
your
about it.
manager.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Then it's the man upstairs because I'm as high as you get.
Mm,
Anyway, well, okay. So last minute tips because we got to wrap up here. We're going a little bit overtime. In terms of
sorry.
just no. It's fine. I mean, this is a great topic, and it's an important one because I think a lot of people just don't think about it when they're starting the business. A lot of times, like, am I going to be prepared to deal with the negativity and how do I turn it around? I think the main takeaways that I've got is one, diffusing the situation and establishing that they're dealing with a person that is listening
Mhm.
and empathizing,
Hmm.
that hears them and is willing to provide solutions. Like in my mind, that's like 80% of the battle. Like that seems to just flip. Like when a reasonably timed response,
Mhm.
we have a 24-hour response window. Shane, you probably had a even shorter one, obviously. But just always emailing, always responding within 24 hours, making people realize there is somebody on the other end that has done wonders in terms of just like setting the tone, and people's tone will dramatically change from guns blazing to, oh, okay, well, this is a fixable problem, because a lot of it is
Mhm.
just, it starts as a rant because they're frustrated about something else in their day or some other customer service experience they had with some other terrible company. So that's the biggest part of the battle. Then it's the sussing out, okay, what's the real issue here, right? Is this somebody that's just not going to be happy unless they get a refund? Or is this somebody
Mhm.
that is like willing to actually work to find a solution? You need to really understand that piece so that you can propose the right thing. And sometimes I will offer both, where it's like, you know what? I'll tell you what, I'll let you choose. We can either ship you the replacement
Hmm.
part here, or if you don't want to wait and, the scratch that you had was annoying or whatever, I'll give you a $25 refund or a 50, whatever is,
Mhm.
reasonable. And sometimes people will take the money and feel like, cool, I got a better value and I really didn't care about the scratch, but I wanted to complain. And other people are like, no,
Mhm.
this is a nice piece and I want to get the right thing. And I think giving options to people and letting them pick is a great, it acts as a diffuser, and it's a great way to make them feel empowered. I don't know, have you
Absolutely.
guys
Mhm.
tried that?
Yeah.
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 For the most part, I've always tried to leave it off. I'm like, okay, here are your options: A, B, or C. You
Yeah.
tell me
Mhm.
what you would like to do that would make you happy. Because
Right.
then it's like I'm not trying to guess. I'm not trying to read the person.
Sure.
They're still in control, and it's that added thing where it's just like, I think people are used to, where they deal with other companies, they don't have options. It's like, okay, what's the company going to do? Where
Mhm.
all of a sudden you just kind of flipped it over. It's like, wait, you give me options? You actually let me pick what I want? Wow,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
People love
People aren't used
options.
to that.
Grant's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
One other thing I would recommend, you guys, if you have a chat interface or something, I've seen this more and more and I love it. Uh Make your, like, actually put an avatar of your face on the chat thing so they can like see that you're a person that they're dealing with, that
Yeah.
you're not a chat bot and all this stuff. Like, it
Mhm.
really matters. I've even seen chat stuff as go as far as like, hey, we'll connect and do a video. Like, I don't think everybody wants to do that, but I do see more tools being put in place to just add that human touch, which I think really really matters more than a lot of people consider. I don't know,
Mm.
Andrew, what
Hmm.
you have any other little last minute tips and tricks?
No, I mean the options one is a great one. I mean, I've employed that several times. Here's what we can do. We can refund you. We can do this. We can do that. That works really well. I
Right.
think,
Let them
yeah,
feel
just
empowered. Yeah.
yeah, I think just letting, again, it comes back to letting them be heard too. I understand you're having this issue, or sometimes even repeating the problem to them makes
Hmm.
them feel like you're really taking into consideration all of the details,
Mm,
or in some cases asking for more details. On specific things, it really gives them the feeling like, oh, hey, this person really cares. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so.
Grant from 3D Musketeers has a really great question that I want to field. And he says, is a chat system even worth it as a solo entrepreneur? It seems like I would be tethered to my computer all day. I I'm gonna say I use a system that is embedded into Shopify now. They call it Inbox. And I love it and I hate it, but I put some bumpers on it, I put some guardrails on it. And it's got a good mix of automation tools. So if somebody just wants to search for their tracking number, stuff like that, like it can actually field some of those things in and of itself. But we also have autoresponders in place where it's like we're only looking at this from 9 to 5. We're busy. Sometimes we're out in the shop. It might take a little time to respond. So the right chat system can be fantastic. It also feeds to my phone. And so I don't necessarily have to be in front of the computer. And I've already set the tone that it's like we try to respond between the hours of 9 a.m., 5 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. You can always email us at support, whatever. We always aim to respond within 24 hours. But I also, my autoresponder, I say like we're small. Sometimes we're out in the shop. We're not just sitting at the computer. I try to set that tone.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, just being able to let people know what they're dealing with is everything a lot of the time. And they go, oh, okay, cool. That's fine. That's reasonable. And a lot of times I can just really quickly answer a question. It's, I don't need another reason to be tethered to my phone, but it beats having to sit in front of the computer all day too. So it seems like a good compromise to me. And I know there's a ton of other support systems out there, Zendesk and whatever, that are tied to MRPs, ERPs, and it gets plenty complicated. What do you guys think? Andrew, what do you use? Do you use a live chat or you just do email?
We just do email.
Yep.
There is a phone number. We are required to have it by law on all of our packages.
Yep.
And if you do call it, eventually you will get to me.
Eventually.
Eventually. I mean, we do have like, a switchboard thing, and, eventually it, you go through a couple options and then it gets to me. But yeah, we really just do everything via email because it's just so much easier. We are small. I mean, we're one person full time. That's me. Everything else,
Yeah.
is just, it happens as it happens.
Shane, I'm not going to bother. I mean, we know you guys are a larger company. You have a ticket. You probably have a custom ticketing system. I don't think you're using anything off the shelf, are you? Or were you? Or can you even say?
I cannot confirm or deny that type of stuff. But I will sit there
Fine.
and say what you were saying before, though, as far as like letting people know, like, hey, it's a small place, setting your customers' expectations
Yep.
when contacting you is
Mhm.
a very important thing because everyone's so used to now with like Amazon and everything else. Well, actually, no, they even changed it now where it's like you can't even get a live person right off the bat. You have to jump through all their hoops, and half the times you'll be lucky to get a live person. But
Yeah.
still, I mean, like it's good. It's good that you do it something like that, so you're setting their expectations. Because I mean, like even still, when I was doing sport before, people were like
Yeah.
I had to wait 2 minutes. Oh no.
Mhm.
My
So
Mhm.
God,
sorry. So
I'm,
sorry.
but setting their expectations in situations like that can do a world of wonders. So
Absolutely. Well, listen, guys, this has been a fantastic episode. We're going a little long as we always do because we're very verbose people. But hopefully, you guys appreciated it and maybe got some insight into what our lives are like, maybe some pointers, some thoughts in terms of if it's something you do. Let us know in the chat if you feel like this is something you could take on or you wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But it is something that if you're going to sell to the world at large, you're going to have to come across at some point, and we hope that you've gotten some good tools out of it. Shane, I want to thank you for taking time out of your Friday evening. I know we're eager to get down and get out to the disco and stuff like that, but had to stay
disco,
in and
disco,
chat with us.
disco.
Yeah, yeah, they're big on their disco in Prague.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
Well,
Oh, the Prague nightlife is
it's
very interesting,
amazing. I mean, they don't call it
and
disco,
so's the
but
morning after with everyone
but it's
returning
all
home from
it's
it.
all one thing, man. It just blurs into like the
Oh
tomorrow
yeah.
afternoon time, and then everybody goes home
Hmm.
and goes to sleep at about 1 p.m. I don't know. I don't know how, but it happens. Thank you though so much for
Oh,
being
no.
with us on your Friday night. We appreciate you,
Uh,
and
anytime. I'm very
we'll have to
thankful
do it
to be on
again
here.
soon. Yeah. Yeah, man, you are a font of knowledge in the world of customer support, and we've been very honored to have you share some tales from the trenches with us. So thank you for that.
Aw.
Uh,
Yeah,
For everybody in the chat that's still with us, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you feeding us questions, comments, all that stuff. As always, you guys can find us on Twitters. I am at Repkord, Repkord, and Andrew's at 3D Gloop. Also, check out Same Old Shane at Same Old Shane on Twitter. We're all pretty prolific on Twitter if you want to tweet at us. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. If you have ideas for other things that you want us to cover, we're always eager to hear it. But until next Friday, we will say goodbye for now. And thank you for listening to Maker That Money. Everybody have a fantastic Friday and weekend. See ya.
See ya.
Later.